The discussions between our government and the UK, there are high expectations that South Africa will be removed from Great Britain's red list. It's widely expected that a decision will be announced today. Well, to discuss this, let's cross to our correspondent from London, Olly Barratt. Olly, thanks so much for joining us. This red list issue has been a major topic of conversation here and one of contention. What has been the problem?
The problem has been that the UK believes, and we don't know exactly why they believe this, that the data coming from South Africa means that it has needed to stay on the red list for travel. And the reason why I say we don't know exactly why is that what the UK government has done is set out the criteria that it makes these decisions on, but it doesn't really go country by country explaining why they are where they are on the red list or otherwise when it comes to travel restrictions coming in this direction. Now, Grant Shapps, the Transport Secretary, has said previously that it was to do with vaccination rates in South Africa compared to other parts of the world, but that then didn't explain why Kenya came off the red list a couple of weeks ago and South Africa didn't. We also heard from the British High Commission concerns around the Beta variant, but that didn't really seem to add up either, given that Delta has effectively obliterated Beta in South Africa. So it may be that there is a very good explanation for why South Africa has remained on the travel red list. It may be that that very good explanation has been provided in some of those meetings between South African and UK officials and in that phone call between Boris Johnson and Cyril Ramaphosa, but it has not been made public, that explanation, and I think that's part of the reason there's so much anger in South Africa, but also in the travel industry here in the UK, which wants to see that lucrative and important route reopened.
It certainly has caused something of a diplomatic impasse until the discussions were held earlier this week from Prime Minister to President. What does being on the red list for South Africans who want to travel to Britain actually mean?
It means hotel quarantine on arrival in the UK, and that is very expensive. It costs several £1,000s, more thousands of rand on arrival for that mandatory hotel quarantine here for a period of 10 days. So it's not just restrictive in terms of personal liberties, it's expensive as well, and it's effectively meant that the travel between South Africa and the UK during this time has been very close to zero when it comes to international flights. Now, one other thing to bear in mind today is that if South Africa does come off the red list for travel, it will mean that for fully vaccinated travellers from the UK, going to South Africa and returning will become much easier. The testing requirements are getting looser. There will be no requirement for quarantine or mandatory hotel quarantine either. The difficulty that might arise at that point is that people vaccinated in South Africa at the moment don't yet qualify as part of that scheme, so would still need to quarantine coming to the UK. So you could see a reopening of the tourism route from the UK to South Africa, but still life would be very difficult for South African travellers wanting to come here. That, I think, would cause further diplomatic pressure and disagreements between the two governments. We know the UK government is working on this. It really boils down to vaccine certification, and the UK government wants to get its ducks in a row in terms of what it accepts in terms of proof that people have been vaccinated with the approved vaccines that the UK has on its list.
Yeah, our government has now started and opened up the digital vaccine passport, which seems to be having had glitches, but seems to be up and running now. Is that going to be acceptable, do you know, in the UK?
Well, that's exactly the type of thing that UK officials will be looking at. They much prefer a digital certification route, and sometimes it comes down to really simple things. We heard in the last couple of weeks, just to take one very specific example, that the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, was being added to the list of countries for whom the UK accepted digital certification, and the Transport Secretary explained that the only reason it hadn't been accepted up to that point was that through this digital vaccine pass, dates of birth were not included in the right way from the UK perspective up to that point. And once that issue was sorted, the UAE was then an approved vaccine program in terms of certification. So it's issues like that the UK officials are looking at. They say they're working as quickly as they can with governments around the world, but again, it's caused huge issues. The Indian government, for example, is very, very angry indeed that while Covishield, AstraZeneca vaccines administered in India are accepted as an approved vaccine, the vaccination certification from India is not accepted. So at the moment, Brits who are vaccinated can travel to and from India and not need to quarantine when they get back here. Indians who've been vaccinated in India still don't qualify. And as I say, that's caused a diplomatic incident between those two countries.
All right, we'll look out for that announcement hopefully later today. That's Olly Barratt, our correspondent in London.